It was a disastrous weekend for the Philadelphia Phillies, who were outright swept by the Milwaukee Brewers in a series in which everything that could go wrong did go wrong. With the first real turmoil that this team has faced this season, could a new move be in order to shake things up? The Phillies have once again been connected to Kyle Finnegan as a trade target to hopefully solidify this bullpen, which seemingly is holding on by a thread. Now, the bullpen is not all that went wrong this weekend. We got Jesus Luzardo hit around worse than I thought was possible based on how he's been pitched this season. We got Trey Turner booting routine ground balls out there in shortstop that just led to some disastrous results. We got Bryce Harper seemingly being more hurt than the Phillies are willing to publicly say. It was not a great weekend in Phillies baseball here. But I do want to talk a little bit about this new rumor here. We've heard a lot about Kyle Finnegan and kind of talk about if that is the kick in the butt that this team could need. Now, before I dive fully into it, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. At this point in time, just 27% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to us here at Phillies Digest just yet. There will be better days ahead compared to what we just saw this weekend, and maybe Kyle Finnegan could help solve that. Now, to dive into the article that did launch this here, we got a headline here saying Phillies could swing blockbuster trade for all-star closers soon. And to walk through the report, it writes, the Philadelphia Phillies have the best record in the National League and the second best record in baseball. However, they have a hole in their bullpen that needs to be filled. The Phillies lost their closer, Jose Alvarado, to a PED suspension that makes him ineligible for the postseason. He had 7 saves and a 2.70 ERA. His absence has pushed Jordan Romano into the 9th inning role, but the Phillies may want a better option than him to close games. Newsweek's Drew Von Socio tabbed Kyle Finnegan as an option for the Phillies. And to give his full thoughts before I dive into my takeaways, quote, Finnegan has pitched in 19 games this season for the Nationals and is 15 for 18 on save opportunities this season, wrote Von Socio. In his appearances, the right-hander has produced a 2.41 ERA for Washington as it continues to struggle in the National League East. The National struggles may be perfect for the Phillies to pounce on Finnegan and lure the all-star closer away from a divisional rival. The Nationals have some good young players, but do not look like a team that will be in the postseason mix this year. If they start selling off pieces in preparation for next year, Finnegan could be the first to go. He will be a free agent after this season. He was an all-star last year and is making just $6 million this year. Last season, he had 38 saves in 63 and 2/3 innings of work. This year, he has 15 saves in 18 and 2/3 innings with a 2.41 ERA. Good closers are always a commodity, and the Phillies have World Series aspiration. They cannot go into October with Romano and his 7.65 ERA as an option to close games. And unfortunately, that is the spot that they currently find themselves in. I will give Romano a little bit of credit for finding a way to gut it out and turn things around from what did look to be an absolutely disastrous start to the season. I still don't have this glowing confidence or believe he can be the guy. And frankly, I think the larger conversation is it can't just be about Jordan Romano, that there just is not enough quality arms in this bullpen, and Kyle Finnegan would be an upgrade over what they have. Now, as I say that there, I certainly am not the biggest Kyle Finnegan guy. Yes, it is true he's an all-star closer. Yes, it is very true that I do think the Washington Nationals will move him. I actually like the direction the Nationals are going as a franchise. I think they got a lot of nice young talent here, that they are building things up in a really solid way, but they certainly are not ready to contend this season. And Kyle Finnegan is the type of guy that they should be trying to sell high on. That also gives me a little concern from a Phillies perspective that they will be, in my opinion, selling high on this guy. And to dive into a little bit of his stats here with Kyle Finnegan, that you can kind of see, and as I pull up the wrong page here, you can kind of see that this season he's pitched in 21 games, that 20.2 innings pitched here. He's allowed 19 hits, 8 runs, 6 of those were earned there, has walked 8 hitters there, struck out 18. So the 18 strikeouts in 20.2 innings, he has performed at a fairly high level. Now, why I think he's a worse player in my head, and probably most of you guys listening to this, compared to the actuality of these numbers, is he does not perform his best against the Phillies here. Now, we can look at that in two different directions. On one hand, obviously, if he comes to Philadelphia, he won't be pitching against these guys in any high leverage spots. On the other hand, I think that's a little bit more indicative of the Phillies having a legitimate high-level baseball lineup versus a lot of teams that he does seem to mow down, that not being the case. It is one thing if you're mowing down the Colorado Rockies and the Orioles there. It's another thing if we're talking about needing to beat the Mets and the Dodgers and whoever else on this playoff journey that we still hope this Phillies team can come on. But I also think this brings me to my larger point here, is this isn't exactly the type of shape-up that I do think this Phillies team needs. I'm not saying that there does not need to be help in the bullpen, but I feel there's got to be a little bit more fire internally. Yes, I know that Rob Thomson did get ejected after after a pretty bizarre kind of balk call on Jesus Luzardo there. I'm still not really sure the full explanation. I have a hard time with that with left-handed pitchers in general, finding the clear discrepancy there. Rob Thomson was clearly heated that it was the third base umpire that made that call, not the first base umpire who had a clearer view. And I do think that was a little bit of finally Rob showing some emotion, trying to create a spark in his team, but obviously was not successful here. When talking about shaking things up, that brings me to the topic of this very man right here, Justin Crawford. And our very own Luke Arcani tweets out, Justin Crawford in 2025 versus left-handed pitchers, slashing 455, 500, and 659 versus right-handed pitchers, 302, 382, and 376. So sure, the power is not there, but Luke notes Crawford hit 378 in May with a 929 OPS. It just feels a little too obvious at this point. He needs to be in the majors this week, and that is more the type of shakeup that I think this current Phillies team needs. It does feel, and we know that baseball is a marathon, it does feel like we're back in this lull of just get through the regular season. They have had some stretches where they've played some very good baseball, and I don't think this season or this past series is as bad as it necessarily looked on paper. The Brewers are red hot right now, and this Phillies team didn't have Bryce Harper in the lineup. Luzardo, once again, I don't think, and I hope this is the case here, we get a stinker like that again all season. To his credit, he's been dominant. I do think Rob Thomson did a poor job this weekend. Leaving Luzardo to just get hit around out there at the rate he did, to me, was pretty insane. And frankly, statistically, like, Luzardo's got to be mad about that. His ERA going all the way up to 3.59, I believe it popped up to after that game. That's a dude who was in borderline Cy Young conversations before that specific game, and that's sort of the type of performance which you can't really bounce back from a statistical standpoint. The bullpen guys, I haven't loved the management. Trey Turner, we're going to have the real deal Trey Turner can't be a shortstop conversation at some point. I understand it's a lost cause midway through this season with so much time left on the contract there, but things like that just can't happen. Now, to bring it back to Crawford here, what are we doing in the outfield? What is the actual pathway to success here? We know exactly what we have in Johan Rojas. We know exactly who Brandon Marsh is as a baseball player. I think we have enough of a sample size at this point in the game to recognize what Max Kepler is and who he can be on this Phillies team. I want to know who Justin Crawford can be. And I understand we're rushing things, that he probably is not major league ready for sure right now. And you got to do the dance with options, figuring things out, all these kind of conversations. But what I do think should be notable here is pressuring guys, putting a little momentum of you need to perform better. This is another threat in the clubhouse. This is another guy who's coming. And if it is not this year, if it is not this season, this dude is looking over your shoulder and coming for your spot. That is the kind of pressure that I think this Phillies team kind of needs. And obviously that does not apply to everyone on this roster. Bryce Harper isn't going to be looking over his shoulders. Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, we know what those guys bring to the table. But for the Brandon Marshes, the Johan Rojas, a guy like Max Kepler, who frankly I think has gotten a way larger leash on this Phillies team than should be the case. Weston Wilson, I don't need to see him misplay another fly ball for the remainder of the season. Let's see what some of these young guys have. They've handled the Andrew Painters, the Aiden Millers, the Justin Crawfords with straight-up kid gloves to this point, and I don't quite get the reasoning here. I understand this Phillies team is built to contend right now, but you got a whole lot of regular season to get to before we can even have that postseason conversation. Why not explore what these guys below who are pushing up these prospect lists and being recognized nationally for all the things they're doing in the minor leagues, why not give them a chance? They did take a step in the right direction by putting Mick Abel back in the rotation. That is a guy who's earned the opportunity, who's made the most of it. But what does Justin Crawford need to do to get that same chance? I've seen Johan Rojas, how he looks at the plate. We've seen Brandon Marsh strike out at a ridiculous rate. We understand what Max Kepler is. Give the other guys a chance. That's the shakeup that I think the Phillies need. So while I'm not shooting down the concept of Kyle Finnegan, and I do think upgrades to this overall roster and the bullpen specifically are necessary, I think there's got to be a little bit more push on the interior of this Phillies team. I think there's got to be a little bit more of an internal threat to each and every name on this roster who is sort of on the fringe for the core of this team. So that's the shakeup that at this point in the game, at the start of June, I think should be the move for this Phillies team. Let's create a little bit of pressure across this roster and start getting a little bit of we need to get our full act together within this Phillies team. It is just 4 losses in a row. There is a lot of baseball still to be played. This is not a panic moment whatsoever, but I do think there's been a little bit too much comfort around this Phillies team in these past couple days, I don't want to say weeks because they did have a crazy winning streak not too long ago. Again, they're still a very good baseball team. This weekend looked worse than the reality. But you still can't just wipe that one away after that string of just absolutely disgusting performances there. The lifelessness, the personality, the lack of fight That's the stuff that's more of the message than the results in itself there. But let me know what you guys think about all that. Do want to hear your thoughts on Kyle Finnegan and specifically with Justin Crawford below. Do you see things my way that it is time to create a little bit of internal pressure to get these guys to the major leagues, to have the real deal major league talents looking over their shoulders in a way? For Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas specifically, I'm pretty much talking to you guys, but you can go down the list. Let me know what you guys think about all that in the comments. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. And one more time, do want to remind you guys to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Just past 4,000 subscribers here on Phillies Digest, so appreciate each and every one of you guys that have hit that button to this point, but 73% of you guys watching still have not, so let's keep those numbers climbing. We got better baseball to get to, a lot more exciting things to break down here on the channel, so make sure you're hitting that button, dropping a like on this video. I'll be back talking to you next time. Peace.